I'm Pauli. I'm a mom, a wife, a pelvic floor physical therapist, and founder of No Kegels University. I have helped thousands of women stop leaking, enjoy intimacy, and feel proud of their bodies, even after having kids. After years of listening to women wonder why no one talks about leaking, how they should properly recover after having a baby, and that pleasurable intimacy is possible, I started to get real frustrated because I believe that no mom or woman should struggle when there are answers. It became my mission to shed light on the lack of postpartum care and the lack of discussion on issues that relate to women and their health, even if they can be uncomfortable sometimes. It also became my mission to change the conversation on women's health, the pelvic floor, and more. Here we go. Episode 53. What would happen if you just did Kegels? So I am the oldest in my family, and I have two younger brothers. And when they were younger, they had this habit, and I don't know if this is just a boy thing or if this is my two brothers, but they would ask the most silliest and what I would think the most ridiculous questions. Things like, what would happen if a dinosaur walked into our house? Or what would happen if a ninja fought a lion? Like, who would win? Or what would happen if you ate slime all day? And just even remembering these questions, I was just rolling my eyes thinking, gosh, those are so silly. But now that I'm a mom and I have two littles of my own, they ask some really silly questions of their own. And what I interpret as a good mother is someone that welcomes their questions and wants to discuss things with them and educate them and teach them, and then let them form their own opinions based on what I've shared with them or maybe even what they have studied or elsewhere. And things really resonating with you is a theme that I like to consider anytime I'm learning something new or studying. For me, I need it to make sense. So when I get asked questions like, well, what would happen if I only did Kegels? Or could I just do Kegels and not do your way? And if I'm being honest, there is a small percentage of me that rolls my eyes at that question, just like I did with my younger brothers growing up when they would ask those, at the time, what I thought was most silly questions. But I welcome, especially in my business now, where my goal is, or my mission, I should say, is that women have access to efficient and effective ways to strengthen their pelvic floors after having babies and returning back to the activities that they want to. What that means is that I do welcome all questions. And again, the reason that there's a part of me a very small part of me, like 0.01% of me, that maybe thinks that those are silly questions. I think they're silly questions because, again, my level of understanding is probably different than yours. Although I hope by the time that you have spent some time with me that we have really increased that knowledge and your understanding of how the pelvic floor works and why I've chosen the method that I have, because it's how the body works naturally and physiologically. There's no need to try and recreate the system. So let's do this. Let's first maybe kind of talk about this, and I'll pretend that this is something that maybe my daughter came to me with, which I would imagine that someday when she's a teenager, because she has grown up hearing No Kegels University. She has had all these cute ways of saying university growing up that probably one day, to really get under my skin, she's going to say, well, I'm just going to do Kegels, Mom, and you can't stop me. I'm sure maybe, I don't know. I hope that we don't have that phase, but I'm not going to be surprised if we do, because I was quite the sass mouth when I was younger myself. So I'm sure it's coming. So what would happen if you did Kegels and you only did Kegels? Well, first, let's consider a couple different things. Number one, nothing might not happen. And the reason that is is because when you contract and relax your pelvic floor, or when you squeeze and relax your muscles, any muscle really, it's really not that much force happening. And if you think about like your quad muscle, for example, the one on the front of your leg, or even if you consider your glutes, like squeezing your bum cheeks together and then letting them go, is that the only way that you work your glute muscles or the only way you work your quad muscles? No way. They have to be able to hold you up. And how heavy are you? Let's just say 100 pounds. So is doing just like squeezing your bum cheeks together and letting go, is that enough force to keep those muscles strong enough to carry your 100-pound self around? No way, right? And that's the same principle with your pelvic floor, is squeezing and relaxing is not enough. And the other part that I'll add in here too is because I have assessed pelvic floors personally, I have seen them, I have had my hands working on those muscles for the past 13 years, I feel like I have a different stance on this and a different level of understanding and experience here when I've had patients show me how they do their Kegels. And I am here to tell you that so dang many of them are doing them wrong, or they're doing opposite. They're pushing down like they're trying to have a bowel movement or to pass gas on purpose. So I just don't buy that the Kegel or just a squeezing and relaxing of that pelvic floor, which is what a Kegel is going to be enough to make a change, which in turn allows that pelvic floor to do what it's supposed to, which would help improve intimacy or stop leaking or feel like your body isn't going to fall apart after having a baby. So option one is nothing may not happen. I want to quickly interrupt and tell you it's here. Bye Bye Leakage, the comprehensive program for pelvic floor strengthening. I recently updated it and I can't wait for you to join. I want you to stop doing Kegels and wondering if they're even working or if you're doing them right. You deserve to know how to effectively and successfully strengthen your pelvic floor, stop leaking when you cough, laugh, jump, sneeze, have pain-free intimacy, improve your energy, and feel proud of your body, even after having kids. Bye Bye Leakage is well worth over $3,000, but I'm offering it to you today for less than a quarter of that price. There are 12 sessions, and each session outlines the same programming that I have given to my patients in the clinic for the past 13 years, where thousands of women have gotten the results that you're only dreaming of. Each session is full of exercises, tips, tricks, and trainings. There's even roadmaps included in Bye Bye Leakage for pregnancy, postpartum, and prolapse. This program has been designed to give you a framework to last you a lifetime. I've also included 3 bonus programs just for you: End of the Urgency, Trampoline Strong, and Diastasis Recti 101. You can get it in the show notes, on my website, or in the link in my bio on Instagram at BeyondTheV by Pauli. Number 2, you could get worse. Because again, if you're not generating enough tension with your quote unquote exercises and your workouts, then you're really not making any change to those muscles. And if you're not making enough change, then possibly you're getting weaker, which in turn may exacerbate or magnify the symptoms you're experiencing. Pain with intimacy, feeling like things are going to fall out, leaking, feeling unstable or not strong in your workouts, all these different things. And the other thing that can happen as well is that if you did Kegels, is there are some people who, I mentioned that they don't do them right, that they will do opposite. There's some that will actually contract and they never fully relax all the way. And so what they'll do instead is, and I've actually seen a trend of this, that you should check with your healthcare provider before you start doing Kegels. I'm here to tell you that most of your healthcare providers, like your OBs, they don't really know how to assess the pelvic floor. And I don't know if I should say that or not, but most of the time when they take a look at your muscles, the speculum that they're using is covering everything up. And I'm not sure. And if your doctor's telling you to do Kegels, again, I would wonder, do they really understand the pelvic floor and the complexity? I don't think they do, because oftentimes when I've explained it to family members that are physicians or what have you, when I explain it the way that I'm just explaining it here, they'll say, oh, that's so interesting. That makes so much sense. Why is it that all we hear is that Kegels are the answer? And I'll say, I have no idea. I really don't know. And I think it's just because it's easy to spit out, oh yeah, just do Kegels, because I don't think that many providers really understand. And it's a big undertaking to go and figure that out on their own. And it makes sense to me. It's just probably not worth their time and their while. Just like I don't understand hormone health very well, but I also know it's a very vital component to a woman and her health. All right, so moving on to the next option here, what would happen if you did Kegels? If you tore or had an episiotomy or even had a C-section, if you're not managing that scar tissue and you're just doing Kegels, more than likely nothing would happen. You would remain at status quo, because that scar tissue is going to limit how much of a contraction or how strong that contraction is, because scar tissue acts a lot like super glue, or does what I like to call the Elsa effect. That scar tissue freezes everything. And what I've observed is once I get someone's scar tissue moving, or when someone else gets their own scar tissue moving, if they're a client, then what happens is to me, that feels like, and again, I've done this for so long, that pelvic floor feels so dang close to a 6-week, 8-week, 10-week, 12-week postpartum pelvic floor, because that scar tissue healed and froze those muscles in the same time frame, the same place as they were when they were healing at that 6-week, 8-week, 10-week, 12-week time period. And I'll have patients say, okay, well, the muscles don't feel tight anymore, but it just feels like, I don't even know, it just feels so spongy in there. And that is very weak, atrophied muscles that are very reminiscent of muscles, pelvic floor muscles, after a vaginal childbirth. And so I bring this up because I just think that there's so many components to the pelvic floor strengthening process that get overlooked by so many. And especially those who are fitness professionals or who have only done like an online certificate. And I'll be honest, I don't exactly know what some of these certifications are that some people have, because I see what they're teaching and it's really, really old, it's antiquated, and it's just not what the current research is saying. And because that's what I was taught coming out of school, and while I had hands-on with my own patients, they still weren't seeing the results that I knew that they could have. And that's why I dove in to really see if I could understand the pelvic floor better to help my patients better, which translates into helping you better. So I think with all of that said, maybe a better question might be, what can I do to get my pelvic floor working like it used to, or what can I do to get it strong like it used to be? I think that is a better question. I feel like there is a lot of marriage and commitment and loyalty to Kegels, and I'm not really sure why, because they haven't served anybody. Nobody likes doing them. Everyone forgets about them, yet they still keep coming back to the Kegels as the answer, which continues to baffle me. So the answer to that question, what can I do to get my pelvic floor working like it used to, or have it be strong like it used to be? I'll tell you that it's the 3 phases that I teach with my method to strengthen the pelvic floor. And the first is phase 1, where we get the tissues moving and moving well. We ensure that your pressure system is doing what it should, that your scar tissue and all the other muscles are moving well, which includes your hips. And then we move into phase 2, which is pelvic floor strengthening using my method, the VAB3 method, where we use at least 2 of the 4 components and principles. And then we move into maintenance mode. And you'll notice that the phase 1 and phase 3, these are not common in other women's programs for strengthening your pelvic floor. And again, it comes back to probably not really understanding how that pelvic floor works. And so I'm hopeful that you will join me in strengthening your pelvic floor using my method. And my suggestion for you is a few things. Number one, schedule a Your Pelvic Floor's Next Step call with me where you and I can decide, customized to you, your pelvic floor's next best step. Or you can join our sorority where I go live every week giving you pelvic floor exercises and doing trainings on all of these topics and so much more. Or you are welcome to have a look at the programs inside No Kegels University. And I'll put the link in the show notes. And my suggestion to you is to take a look at the Your Pelvic Floor Your Way, the DIY pelvic floor strengthening program, or at Bye Bye Leakage, which is such a comprehensive program for you to strengthen your pelvic floor at home. Thank you so much for joining me today and having a listen. And remember, you're an heiress and a queen and everything in between. If you enjoyed this episode or even wondered if I can help you, check the show notes for more details. And to see what else I'm up to, follow me on the socials at Beyond the V, by Pauli. Because I'm changing the conversation on women's health, the pelvic floor, and more, I still need your help. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend or two. See you next week.